Hi guys, welcome to the second episode of Beyond Agility. As you've seen from the teaser, today we have the pleasure to host two of the top voices of business agility around the globe. We discussed business agility from a broader perspective, narrowing down to a more personal experience. Are you curious to see what they said? Stay with us to find it out.
Name, surname, and profession.
Hi, I'm Vinnie. Surname is Gill, so Vinnie Gill, short and easy. I am a product and delivery specialist, but you can call me an Agile Coach. That's fine as well.
Andrea Provaglio, I'm a business agility mentor.
Ristretto or lungo?
Lungo.
Actually, cappuccino. Sorry.
Sea or mountain?
Oh, mountain?
C, definitely for sure.
Windows or Mac?
Windows.
Mac.
Podcast or book?
Both.
It depends. Podcasts at the gym, books at home.
Your best quality?
I think I was told that I have a nice smile. So I'm not sure if it still applies in this day and age, but I think that's it.
I hope it's integrity for me.
Your worst flow?
Procrastination, which could also be a quality.
I agree. I do my best work sometimes last minute.
Where did you meet the first time and how?
Okay, I really want to tell this question. So Andrea and I met the first time 2 years ago at the Agile conference in Prague. Andrea was speaking, and at that point I just moved to Italy. So obviously, I wanted to connect with somebody from Italy as well. Now we've become, really good friends, I would say. He's been in Agile Prague every single year without fail. Is it 13 years, Andrea?
Except for one, but yes, 12 years at least, yes.
Yeah. So we've given the name Andrea as the spirit animal of Agile Prague. And he's our lucky charm. And the thing about Andrea is I like being around him because he's really nice, calm, and gentle. And it has a really positive and welcoming vibe to those who are around him. At least it does to me.
That's so sweet of you, Vinny. Thank you.
You're going to give me chocolates after this.
I will. At the first opportunity. Yes, we met at Agile Prague, and Vinny was jumping around as she usually does at conferences, and so it was really impossible not to notice her.
Describe each other's in 3 words.
Calm, kind, centered.
And I would say sunny, energetic, and pragmatic.
So the first one is why business agility is a necessity and no longer an option. Who want to put it?
Well, firstly, Claudio, thank you very much for inviting us. It's really great that you're doing this podcast in the business agility space because I'm not sure if there's any podcasts like this in this space. So well done to you. For me, the business agility space, my background is quite different. Yeah, so I spent 10 years in industry before moving on to Agile, and my background is in business. So I've actually worked in all the business functions. I've done the job. Not as a scrum master, not in an agile team or anything like that, just in those functions. When I started to learn about agile ways of working and I started to work in agile ways of working, it was always in IT. So a lot of people did IT first and then their business agility, but I did everything the other way around, right? Because at that point, agility, or if you look at the frameworks, it only existed in IT at that point. And even if businesses were using some concepts or principles, for example, making your work visible or anything like that, this didn't have a name. It didn't have a name. So IT has progressed and it's gone and it's had its journey. But still, the other functions of business, they haven't come along quite so far along as the other functions have. And for me, this is a huge red flag because you need to go together. All the body parts need to move and sync at the same time. Yeah, like a body. You can't just have your hands moving and the rest of your body not going. So the question is the agility in the system is extremely vital. You are only as agile as your slowest department or your slowest area.
To me, the question, why is business agility important, sounds kind of funny these days. It should be self-evident that Well, okay, I should probably provide a little bit of background. So I've been working with many different kind of organizations, manufacturing companies, pharmaceutical companies, IT companies, finance, and so on and so on and so on. So my perspective of business agility, which is not only the ability to adapt quickly to a changing environment, but also implies the ability to be resilient to change, implies the ability to innovate in times of change. So there's a lot in there. And it's kind of self-evident to me that if you look at the world today, that's a necessity. Is not, it's the natural way we should work, given the challenges in which, or just the nature of the world in which we operate these days. And of course, in IT 20 years ago, we had a privileged observation point. I mean, we saw this coming before anybody else because of the nature of IT, of that technology and that kind of business. So we saw this coming. I mean, not the political, geopolitical stuff. What I'm saying, the rate of speed at which the world is changing. So we saw that coming and we prepared for that 20 years ago. But now I believe that it's a necessity for virtually any kind of business, not only a business, I would say any kind of organization, even for a hospital, for a library, for whoever.
So imagining there could be many business agility consultants. Actually, I don't think there are still many into the market, but that might be also a new role that might evolve, right? So what is a one mistake after your experience that you have observed from a business agility consultant doing in the first, let's say, 90 days, in their first 3 months, you know? And how would you avoid it? So what would you recommend him to avoid doing?
Well, there are many, of course, there are many things that we can do wrong when we start working in a new organization. But the first thing that comes to my mind is trying to impose prepackaged solutions of any kind. And that could be a prepackaged framework, that could be a prepackaged philosophy, like, the change mindset versus the fixed mindset, or the agile mindset. So every time you try to impose any kind of prepackaged solution, that's usually a problem, because not only maybe you improve something, but you also bring in all the problems that that solution want you to solve in the first place. So that would be, I would say, is the first and most important mistake that people do, trying to impose a predefined, preconceptualized solution. So what do you do instead? You go in an evolutionary way. You start small. You run tests. You create a narrative. You interact with people a lot. You listen to the actual issues that they have. You talk about the different kind of resistance. And then, of course, there are certain principles that are kind of universal, but the way you apply those principles is always contextual to the organization. So forgetting about the context is not something that you want to do. Keeping the context in mind, living within the context is probably a better approach.
Vinny, what would you like to add? What have we missed here?
So in addition to what Andrea has said, for me, I am disappointed in some ways, because I feel we have a lot of learnings from the tech department. We have a lot of research out there. There are a lot of evidence what works and what does not work. But time and time again, I see people still going with the safe option. Yeah, not scale agile framework, but the safe option, which is following what Andrea said, a playbook or a pre-canned solution that has been sold in a different country, maybe it can even be in the same country, but in a different industry, right? What organizations need to realize is they are different. Everything is different. Even if you take one bank to another bank, culturally, it's different. You also have nested cultures as well within the departments. So I'm really disappointed why people haven't learned out there. The second thing is, I think the decision makers are responsible. Yeah, they are not responsible. I know a lot of people like to blame Agilist, but guess what? People need to eat, right? You will find coaches that try and pass themselves off as business agility coach. It's happening now. All of a sudden, everybody is like, into business agility. Now, if you're a decision maker, you are absolutely responsible and absolutely accountable. They also feel like they want to take the safe option, again, not Scale Agile framework, but the safe option where they hire a brand or a known name. Yeah, these names, this is not their bread and butter. This is the bread and butter of the three of us. This is what we do. This is what we live and breathe. So take those learnings. Go find out. Go research. Shed that ego away and go and find out. A lot of us, if you come and approach us and talk to us, we would do it for free. Second is equating agility with frameworks. Yeah, that's not it. And it's also the quickest way of making people just hate you and not like you, because you're forcing people. Andrea mentioned experiment. That's really important, right? You need to find what works for you, what is important for you, not including people. Another big example, going by yourself, sitting in the room, not talking to people, bad. And lastly, not building relationships. You need to start with building relationships. That is so important, and to communicate your why so that people understand. So I really hope if there's this one message that somebody's going to take away, like, please find the best person for the best job.
Thank you, guys. I mean, I think what you commented also leads a bit to my next question, which is this one. Okay, so imagine you need to fix a company which is struggling with the business agility transformation. Okay, so what would be your first 3 moves? Okay, what do you think would be most important to do? But if there is a pattern, or yeah, if it would be your choice, let's say.
You want to go first, Vinnie? Should I?
You can go first.
Okay, my dear. Okay, so that's a very tough question, I would say. And probably the first clarification is I never go into an organization try to fix anything. If you go in there with the idea that something is broken and you have the solution and you need to fix them, that's probably not a sensible approach. So one thing the first move is I would try to get a good conversation, a rapport with the most important stakeholder in place, or let's say the highest management position. So if there is no real commitment from management, and I'm talking about commitment like, yes, we want to do this because everybody else is doing that and blah, 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 blah. No, I'm talking about we understand that our company, our organization needs this, and we are committed to making some kind of adjustments, change. We are committed to achieving results for ourselves, for our people, for the market, for the business, and so on and so on and so on. So the first thing is to verify that you really have this kind of commitment from the top. And so that would be my first move. The second move is to listen to the pains of the operational people. You really listen to, which is something that Vinnie already mentioned. You really need to listen to the people who are doing the work day by day. They are suffering from lack of communication, from confused objectives, from too much pressure, from they're suffering from a number of things. So you need to understand the real pain. And the third move I would like to discover after the first 2.
This is like chess, you're asking me what my opening move is.
Do you have a strategy, Vinny?
Sorry?
Do you have a strategy to play this chess game?
More or less, but for me, I like to be firm with my vision and flexible with my steps. So the same thing I ask from the company that I'm working with, or from the people that I'm working with, what is their vision? But one step back for me is to actually find out their why. And because I've been doing this for so long, when they can't give me an answer why, or I get really smart answer, that's because next door person is doing it. And I've heard that, right? Like, oh, you've worked there, they're doing Agile, we need to do it too. For me, these answers are not good enough. So if I feel like I can work with them and I can explain to them, and we're both willing to work with each other, And I feel that there is a platform for conversation. It starts with education, not only from their part, but also from my part too. I also need to be educated in them and to learn about them. So with that, it's like the relationship. If I don't have the relationship, the person who is hiring me or people that I'm working with, it's not there, then I don't think either you can tell that it's not going to go well, it's going to fail, because it might be on somebody's KPIs. I've heard that as well. My KPI is to get this agile thing going. I need to get finance, I need to get marketing agile, so it's on my KPI. These are not good enough reasons, because people suffer, people pay the price. C-suite, they come and go. People are always there. So you need to clarify the why and to build relationships. And they need to be open to experimenting. The concept of experimenting.
Vinnie, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but for a moment when you were talking, I thought you said, I want to go in there and listen to their lie, not the why. And but I believe that sometimes there are a lot of lies. No, we want to do this and that, and that's a lie. There are other reasons that are completely unrelated to what they claim they want to do. So finding out not just the why, but also the lie can be an interesting strategy.
I guess you're right, because some of the lies can be, I need KPI. This is on my performance appraisal. If I don't get this, I'm not going to get my bonus.
Yep.
Maybe that's not a lie. Maybe that's them being honest, but it is a lie to the people that are about to receive this change.
Yes. Yeah.
We could do the 5 why, right? So why do you really want it?
Or the 5 lies at this point.
Or the 5 lies. So guys, thank you. Listen, the next one, I think to what also Andrea commented, in their first move, right? So the commitment to the top, right? So this is leading to my next question. So based on your experience, actually, what is the number one reason executives actually tend to resist to business agility, and how do you win them over?
I would like to let Vinnie go first this time, if that's fine with you, Vinnie, because as you say, otherwise it's like a chess game. So you go first.
Sure. I can be white. You can look second, you can be black. Sorry, so the question is,
number one reasons executives resist to business agility.
So I echo what Andrea says, that you need to start from the top. And I really don't like this word buy-in. Anybody can buy in. I can buy in. I don't need another believer. What I need is people to actually mirror the behaviors and work and work it. So number one failure is, I think we have answered that by just talking about it, is when it is given as a little bit at the side. You dangle this little carrot and, oh, that guy's free, Okay, so we have Claudio. He's on our C-level. He's free. Let's just give him this little agile thing, We'll give him something busy to do. Oh, but he's 80%. We've got 20% capacity for him to work, so we give him this agile thing. No, for this to work, you need to give me your best person. It needs to be your best person, the person that people like, people love, the person that can, that is open to ideas. Yeah, so that has that leadership quality, and this needs to be their only job. This is their job, and this is what they're doing. And once you have them actually role modeling the behaviors, I think then you have a possibility. I'm not saying then you can succeed. You have a good chance to not drown. So I feel this is the mistake by people just thinking that, oh, this is the sexy thing. You need somebody, as I think Rudyard Kipling said, to walk with kings and queens and all lose the common touch. That person needs to be it.
Okay, so then again, first of all, I never try to win someone over. I'm not a salesman. I'm not trying to push anybody to do anything they don't believe in. But when we talk about executives, first of all, there is a lot of misinformation about agile and business agility. So number one, sometimes people are just confused by different messages they get from different sources, sometimes contradicting themselves. And so there's some kind of confusion. But I would say that probably a very reasonable source of resistance from executive is either the fear of losing control or the fear of losing status of some kind. And now what I've always find is that whenever I had I was lucky enough to meet some executive who really did their homework, they really studied the subject, there was never resistance. I mean, anytime an executive understands what agile really means, what business agility really means, usually they don't resist it. They see that as an opportunity. The problem is when they go by hearsay, when their decision is driven by just looking around and stuff like that. So my recommendation is for an executive, please do your homework. And I know that it's hard. I know that they are very busy people. I know that they have huge responsibilities, but deciding what is the strategy for bringing your organization into the next century, which is now, that's also a very important responsibility. And the other thing I would add is that usually I run into two kind of situations. So one, which is the less likely, is when an organization is doing well and the executive is so enlightened that they see that as the perfect opportunity to try something different, because now they have the energy, they have the time, they have the money, they have the stamina in the organization, and they want to do something different, something better. But unfortunately, the other situation which I ran into more often is when things are starting to decline in the organization. They have problems with keeping up with the market, with keeping up with the supply chain, keeping up with attracting the right people into the organization. So if things are declining, they're going into emergency mode, and then they try to grasp this business agility thing because maybe we'll survive that way. Now that's much tougher, and it's never easy to work when you're drowning, right? So so do your homework while you can. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you, guys. No, I totally agree with what you said. And actually, when I'm building team, I try to build team around motivated individuals. So I think also that would apply as well to the leadership team, So it's much easier if we have this kind of personality, obviously, right? And doing their homework. Cool.
You're right, because Claudio, availability is not a skill set when you choose this leader. Right?
You're right. Okay, the next one. So that's actually the topic number 5, right? So have you ever seen actually business agility failing due to poor communication? Actually, what happened in your scenario, in your case?
Okay, the short answer is yes, and more than once. Okay, but we also need to be more explicit, I think, about what we mean by poor communication, because to me, an organization is always a network of people. Is not the hierarchical chart. An organization is a living network, and there are many channels of communication. Even the conversations as the coffee machine is a form of communication. It's an informal network inside the organization. Or conversation between different functions of the organization, which have different objectives, different local cultures, but they need to be aligned if the organization is to succeed. So Yes, absolutely. Communication is critical, but we have to understand very well what we mean by communication, where it is critical, which are the communication paths, and how to be honest in our communication every single time. Some things maybe you cannot share because of some that might be some some topics that for legal reasons you cannot share. That's okay. But whatever you say has to be honest and at all levels.
So, yes, all the time. I think all the time. If not, Andrea and I would be out of work. You too, Claudio. You'd be out of work too. I feel like communication has it's not really, people like to say, oh, communication is associated with agile ways of working or anything. I don't think you need agile ways of working to communicate. It is the most fundamental thing that we do as human beings. So strip away is how we communicate. So it can be verbally, it can be looking at each other. Sometimes you have signs and body language. And recently I've been reading that, cats build trust because, I just came back from South Africa conference, and apparently, if you do a slow blink to a cat, or one of those big fives, not really big fives, but that's a way that you can establish trust, apparently, right? So I feel like with communication, we're also evolving in how we communicate, right? The generation after us is communicating differently. There was a show recently on Netflix. I can't remember the title, but it has all these different emojis, and all these emojis mean different things.
Yeah.
Right? So we really need to be adaptable in our communication skills and how we communicate. But it is one of the top reasons why a lot of things don't go right. It's because we fail to communicate open, honest, but also the speed of communication, right? What we think sometimes is not important will be important to somebody else work. We feel we don't want to talk to them. We don't want to have that dialogue. If people don't communicate open and honest, I think it really shows, especially from leaders. You can smell authenticity from a mile. And this is why I feel credibility is so important. Like, if you look at the very basics of it, I would ask you, how often does maybe your line manager has a one-on-one with you? Maybe it's not a formal communication. What about informal communication? Do you go for coffees? Do you just sit down and have a chat? These are the kind of things that you need to communicate. And it's like the what and the why and the how you communicate. It's a big topic. I don't want to get into it. A lot of people say that they can over communicate, and I still think it's better to over communicate than not to communicate at all.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, another big topic. Okay, and I'm not sure if this will scare you or not. So metrics, KPI. Okay, actually, which are, based on your experience, actually the worst metrics or KPI that the companies were using to track business agility and the maturity? And instead, which one would you recommend, let's say, as the must be or nice to have?
Oh, we sighed at the same time.
Yeah. So who's going first, Vinny?
I think we can answer this together, right? We can do this
I'm not
together.
sure it works for the format of this interview. So I
Guys,
think
go
should be...
freestyle.
Okay, I'll go first. I cannot point at one specific KPI. I mean, there are many. There are hundreds of pointless KPIs, but so I cannot point to one specifically. But what I'd like to say is that the question you should ask yourself is, what do you do after you collected a KPI? Because if you don't use a piece of information which was hard to retrieve, hard to analyze, hard to put together, so if you don't use all that effort to make sensible decisions so that improve your business, improve your organization, then collecting these KPIs is kind of pointless. Sometimes it's just we collect these KPIs because everybody else does it, or just because they are directly related to individual performance, and therefore we kill teamwork because we reward individuals by collecting a specific KPI about individual performance and not the group performance as well. So the question is not which is the KPI that you want to use or not. The question is, what do you do with those? So what do you do with them? If you use them in an intelligent way, then probably it's a good KPI. And the other thing is, there's the usual saying that not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. So KPIs are not everything can be reduced directly to a number. There could be an indirect correlation, but not everything can be directly related to a number.
For me, more than often, organizations don't measure at all. That's actually missing. Yeah, I know. If they have a KPI, that's great, but most time they have nothing. They have nothing in place, and they haven't even thought about measuring anything. So for me, you can measure whatever you want to measure, but what I'm encouraging you is to pick 1 to 3 is enough. I feel, and I see this trap, people like to have a long list of things because they think bigger is better. And it's not. And they're measuring all these metrics that are of no use, no value, and it's a waste of time. So if I go back, and as Andrea says that they're not using it, I just say, like, just stop it. We're just going to get rid of it. This is just no point, because this is pissing people off, and it's creating a fear in people. When you look at, for example, KPIs or whatever metrics you can measure whatever. There is no answer, there is no good, or there is no bad. But what you should know is it has to be agreed. This is your communication part, right? Agreed upon, agreed together. It needs to be co-created, not pushed. Not, hey, I think we are going to use this metric. I think you need to do it. So that's another one where you feel like you are coerced and you don't have an option. And that's the only option you have, is to just say yes for something that is so pointless and so stupid that you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. So for me, this is one of the biggest mistakes. If you have it, good. A lot of times they don't have it, they don't use it, they do it as a tick box exercise just to keep someone happy. Most of the time it's HR, and HR doesn't even know what to do with this, and so everything just gets filed off away. So if you actually count every single person, how much time is wasted on that? If it's like 1 hour to write that stupid statement that nobody reads, and then your boss doesn't even read it, and he reads it just before that time, and you take all of that as like 5 hours per person times how many people times the salary. That's it. That's the cost to business. So if you're doing all these things that have no value and no meaning, and as Andrea says, you're not doing anything after that, please stop it.
Okay, so question number 7, guys. This is a bit more personal. What is the most painful lesson learned after a failed transformation?
So I do not believe that transformations ever fail. We could say that they can underperform, or let's say they don't meet expectations. I've never seen an organization that tried Agile, then reverted back to the way they used to work before Agile in exactly the same way. Something always sticks. Something changes in the organization all the time. For instance, you try to bring business agility or an agile transformation into organization, that doesn't work, and as a result, a few people leave, they resign, because now they've experienced that there is another way of working that they like better. And when the organization is not able to provide, to, let's say, to fulfill that promise, then they look around and they say, hey, maybe there's a better place for us to work. And so it never fails. It always changes something. Thing is, what it changes is not, sometimes it's not what was expected. So of course, it was very painful as an external mentor and coach when you see this level of disappointment in people, when this sense of an unfulfilled promise. So that's probably the hardest. And I'm not talking about an unfulfilled promise on the mentor or the coach side. I'm talking in general. We said people, hey, we're going to try something different. We are going to solve some of your problems. We're going to create a better environment for you and for the business. And then that doesn't really happen to the level that was expected. So, okay, that's hard to swallow, but that's life. I mean, not all promises can be fulfilled, especially when you don't fully have control over what's happening, which we don't want to have as external coaches, and we cannot have it. On the personal level, one of the most painful lessons I had to learn is that sometimes there are people inside the organization, usually in management position, but not all the time, who are sabotaging what we are trying to do. And that was probably the most painful lesson for me to learn.
I feel, because Andrea, you and I have been around the Agile block, I feel that our experiences are quite similar. I actually have a conference talk out there where I share a case study where a lot of promises were made to the people, and these people really wanted a different way of working. And as cliche as this may sound, they actually saw agile ways of working as a savior to them, because just a few years ago, they were still having desktops. They were not even given laptops.
Yeah.
So they couldn't even go and talk to, stakeholders or different departments. They still had to print everything. And there was absolutely no working from home at all. So they really, really wanted this to work. And from my part, I was saying, this is the conversation, right? It's not about your Scrum or your Kanban. From my side of the conversation is, I wanted this company to attract the best people. The best people, right? So I said, if you want to attract the best people, you need to loosen up a bit. You need to move with the trends. And at that point, the leader that was leading the change, I don't like the word transformation because it sets a wrong expectation. We're telling them that there is an end. There is no end. I prefer evolution or growth. Or if you look at the days when I first started, and maybe the both of you as well, it was actually called adoption. That was the word being used. So that leader really fought for a lot of people. Now, unfortunately, when new leaders come, they all have their own agenda. And this is why I talk about transformation fatigue, where people don't like it. And was not very happy that this leader was actually popular and well liked, and people were happy and smiling, and there was life. When you walked the floors, people were happy for once, and basically took all that away and just cut the cord on all of this. Because they just couldn't understand it, right? And that's the thing about the right person and the right job. And we talked about politics, making this politics. And that for me is not great because there's no empathy for the people. You need to have empathy for for the people just, every day coming in and doing their jobs, and that's what they're doing. And you're right, Andrea, they left. The transformation did fail. Nothing really stuck, but those people left. They left because they found out that there was a different way of being, that they can come to work and feel happy. They can work from home. They have the choice and they can decide. So in a lot of ways, it's not that it failed for the organization, but not for that person. And I always tell the starfish story because it made a difference to that one person. So if I made a difference to one person, that's a good thing. And then I feel personally, it's quite common that we actually get caught up in political crossfires. And it's happened to all of us. People don't talk about it, but it happens to the best of us, right? Everybody has their own agenda. And as we know, sometimes, people can be selfish. And yeah, we get ousted out first. We're always the first to go because it just doesn't suit their needs or their thing, or they want to bring in, their people, or, whatever their 100-day, their plan is. So time and time again, I said, look at leaders at the top, have empathy for the people at the bottom, because these are the people that you want to look after. Organizations, you talk about assets, your most important person, the people, they are your assets. The biggest expenditure in most companies is paying people's salary. That's where you pay people. Those people, look after them.
Guys, thank you a lot. Question number 8. We're almost at the end, okay? How would you explain those folks from the finance department that there are different ways to do maybe the budgeting, so linking this to beyond budget? Not sure if you got the point and the question. If yes, please share your experience.
Of course, the most important reference about this specific relationship is the beyond budgeting work that has been done by the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable and Bjarte Voxnes and so on and so on. But the idea basically is very simple. There are two functions in the organization which are cross-cutting: HR and finance, legal also. Okay. By cross-cutting, I mean that everything in the organization is connected directly or indirectly to the financial part. And so when we talk about budgeting, we are not talking about the budget. We are talking about the process. And the process of budgeting means, for instance, to decide where we want to invest our financial resources, which means strategy. And then we need to set goals, for instance. So spend these financial resources into activities or infrastructure or projects or whatever, but we need to set goals. And then we need to make sure that these financial resources that we are using are used in the right way. So you need to track performance. So we are talking about the strategy, the goal setting, and the performance appraisals of what we do. And clearly, this has a profound impact on every aspect of the organization. So whenever the finance part is very rigid, this rigidity propagates throughout the entire organization. You start, for instance, if you have an annual budgeting cycle, it means that there is this joke that the annual budgeting cycle is you spend 3 months deciding where you will spend the money, and then the rest of the year changing idea. Okay, so because that's what happens, and so I will not try to convince anyone, but I can try to educate somebody. Just to explain things, and I would say, how many times did you have to completely review how many politics, how many tricks you have to apply to your budgeting process to make it work? Because if you have to use tricks to make your process works, I suspect your process is not really working in the first place, and so there's something else that you can do.
I actually have a fun story about this. I know, Andrea, you've given the background of it, but I have a fun story. So I've actually worked with organizations that they budget for 10 years. 10 years.
Mhm.
And I managed to bring them down to 5. And that was such a big achievement for me. Like, I was so happy.
I think you deserve an emoji here.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
And even it's 5, like, so what? You meet people where they're at, it's a small thing. I don't really aim for perfection. I just want some kind of small evolution, right? So I'm not asking for a revolution, I'm asking for an evolution. And what we sometimes fail to look at is some organizations are funded this way because of the policies at the top that we also sometimes overlook. Government, for example, when they're using public funds, they need that level of certainty. And this actually can be one of the biggest, I would say, shortcomings of a lot of people that work in some of these areas where they apply that cookie cutter approach, that approach from IT that they can actually just lift and shift into business agility. It doesn't really work that way. How you fund an organization, how you review your strategy, how often you review your strategy, how fixed is your strategy, how open it is to changing. What does your roadmap look like? Is there a link between that? Is there a link between your spend? But most importantly, are you actually reviewing it? So my funny story is this organization that actually had office fit kit out, and I tell this story with a lot of people that I work with, and even when I do training, they had this office fit, they wanted to make these pods and all of that, to be more agile and, promote better communication and better collaboration. And they actually had online on a Miro, you can put your suggestions on what kind of workspace you like. And they also had a room where you can put stickies. And I was very happy at that point. I was so happy because they were asking the people what kind of office space you like. And, at the same time, they were pretty open with the money that they had to spend. Again, another big win. COVID came and they still wanted to go ahead with that. They still were like calling contractors and getting quotes, and they just refused to stop it. They didn't want to take it out. And I find this really difficult. Even if you look, at what people do, they always want to put things in. It's really hard to take out and stop. So I watched from a sideline for 2 weeks, and then after that, I'm like, come on. We can't do this. This is really stupid. Let's take the money and go somewhere else. So this is my funny story.
We just commented now the finance department. So let's try to reflect a bit at the non-technical departments, right? Like marketing, sales, legal. Based on your experience, actually, in which department have you seen the biggest struggle to embrace or doing the first step towards business agility?
I haven't actually seen a pattern, and I don't think it's fair to actually say that there is a pattern. We talked about organizations being unique and departments being unique. Where there is resistance is always the leader, the gatekeeper, how the organization is structured. That's where you can find the resistance, right? A lot of people say that, we need to get flat teams and there needs to be no hierarchy and things like that. But as Andrea said, I'm pragmatic and I live in the real world. Hierarchy will always exist. If you look at families, there is always a hierarchy. And I know that the both of you are Italians and you do have this, grandparents, parents, and things like that. It is in our nature, and some things that's just the way it is. Like we are born in that. And I know in certain cultures they have a different name for the eldest sibling, the second sibling, the third sibling. They have special names to this. So for me, the hierarchy will always exist in any organization. The question is, how do you make that hierarchy healthy? Create healthy hierarchies. So there isn't one department that is easy or one department that is more hard. It is always the person, the leader, that they have assigned, the availability is not a skill set. That's it. How much, sometimes how much in trouble they are, how much not in trouble they are. Like, you don't want to say, oh, I won't wait for you to be in trouble, then we'll have that stuff, right? Because they're all a product in itself, right? Marketing's a product, HR is a product. They all have their products. So it's actually a mindset. And as funny as this may seem, that's it. It's the willingness and the ability to be seamless.
So for me, there's not really a pattern, but I do realize that there are certain functions in organizations that have a specific need which might not be present in other functions, and that need is compliance. There are certain functions that really have to ensure compliance to something, like legal, for instance, or finance also has to be compliant with the regulations and so on and so on. In manufacturing companies, there is the technical department, for instance, that needs to make sure that the device, the object they build is compliant with the safety regulations. So there are functions in organizations that whose main goal is to be compliant with something. Now, the confusion is that sometimes they think that agility and compliance cannot coexist, but that's not the case. You can be agile while still be compliant with whatever you need to comply to. And so as soon as you clarify this confusion, that agility is not anarchy, agility means adaptability. And if there are certain constraints that we need to take care of, because that's part of your compliance mechanism, we will. But that doesn't prevent us from being adaptive anyway, right? So adaptability and compliance can coexist. And that's something that in certain functions is important to clarify.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they always feel like they have to lose something, Andrea, right? But they don't lose
Yeah.
something. They actually gain a lot more.
Yeah, they are afraid that they can, run into trouble, which is good. It's a good. It means they care. Okay, but that's why we need to explain things. Yeah. So Claudio, you were saying something. Sorry.
I know we are running a bit out of time, so let me drop you the number 10 question, and then there is like a quick bonus, okay? Okay, so the question
Okay.
number 10 pretty much is like a kind of a recommendation and advice to our Scrum Master Agile coaches. So what would you really recommend them to make sure that business agility not only takes roots, but is evolving? Which hint would you give them, if you could give these secret ingredients?
I would say, well, first of all, you need to understand what coaching really means. Coaching is a service profession. So you are in service of someone or something. And so you are not there to impose your ideas or to impose your own philosophy of business agility. You're supposed to be very prepared. You need to know your stuff very well. But there is an ethics to coaching, which is basically respect the other people. So whatever you do as an agile coach has to be respectful and in every possible way. And at the same time, you need to provide guidance. So can you be respectful and provide guidance and support? Is that difficult? Is that hard? Yes. If you don't like that, there are other jobs you can do.
I don't think I'm going to say anything different here. But I feel you really need to meet people where they're at. You need to build relationships. And it's really important to know your limitations as well. I've always said I may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I am somebody's shot of whiskey. So I'd rather be somebody's shot of whiskey than everybody's cup of tea, right? Sometimes I am maybe not the right coach for a person or for an area. And there is no shame in actually saying, let me find you somebody, or let me find somebody else that is better. Because when we as a profession, and Andrea talked about ethics as well, yeah, it's like when you're doing well, it's like you're going well, right? 1, 2, 3, think of a scale. One slip, it goes all the way back, and the whole industry somehow suffers and gets that reputation, right? So don't try and be smart, don't try and be clever, don't push their agenda, hold their agenda, don't respect them because they have done a lot to get there. And as much as we think that we are SMEs in that we're not doing that work, they are the experts.
Great.
Nothing different.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Okay, the last one is a bonus one. Okay, so you can decide if you want to reply or not. So what is the question that I didn't really ask you today, and what would be the answer?
I'm very happy that you didn't ask the question, is Agile dead?
Oh, no, no. I try
Uh,
to do something a bit different from what I see currently, because, I think
okay,
differentiating is healthy.
so we can cut this part. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You shouldn't cut it. Come on, Andrea. Remember when you were, I
No,
was
we keep
interviewing
it,
you
we
and the whole
keep
thing
it.
fell.
Yeah, okay. They'll decide what to do. No, a question could be, a question comes to my mind is, what is the future of business agility? Especially now that technology is evolving, and what are the different roles that we're going to see, and how is leadership going to change? So, and my understanding, my impression is that if I were to give my answer to my own question, business agility is just going to become part of the DNA of most companies, for a very simple reason. Some of them will grow in that culture. There are companies today that are young companies. They are 10 years old, 15, 20 years old. And I'm not talking about startups. I'm talking about established companies here. And they are born in a world where a certain degree of agility culturally was already there. Other companies will never probably jump on the bandwagon of business agility, and we don't know what will happen to them. But I'm sure the name will change. I'm sure the roles will change, the skills will change, but it is inevitable that companies will be more and more agile in the future because they will not survive otherwise.
Some of the business functions that I worked with, they have basically asked about the AI adoption in business agility. My answer is don't. No, not yet. Not yet if you still don't have trust with your people. Not yet if you still don't have your basics. Not yet if you're still going to lead in a command and control. Not yet if you still do not assign value to the work that you do. You don't have strategy. You don't have the basics, right? If you can't lead with authenticity, you're still not I suppose bringing your best self to work. Or maybe if you're still funding in 5 years, but you're not government, please don't do that, because what you're going to do is you're going to just leave things in a bigger state. I think a lot of people want to use AI, but in a lot of companies, they have actually missed this agility step that we have described. So take a step back, because if not, you're just going to use it and you're not even going to use it well. And you're just going to do the thing that everybody else is doing, which is just getting rid of people and getting rid of workers, because that's what you're hearing, Uncle Bob or, Mrs. Sally that's just doing that. So you're just going to do what everybody is doing. So take a step back, check in with yourselves, and most importantly is to role model the behaviors that you think that you want. It's not going to solve your problems. It's just going to make things worse.
Okay, guys, I think we're at the end of the session. I really wanted to thank you a million times. Hopefully you enjoyed the format and the podcast, and hopefully we're able to deliver a value to our audience. Let's see. And yeah, thank you again.
I'm sure it will. Okay, but I want to formally say, and I hope this will make it into the final recording. Thank you very much for inviting us. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Claudio, and talking with you, Vinny. I had a blast.
Yes. I would also like to say, for me, if we had time, I would actually like to ask Claudio the same questions or some of these questions because, maybe Andrea, you and I can interview Claudio for his own show. That will be quite exciting. Don't you think so?
Interesting. Okay.
Thank you again, guys. Have a nice evening. See you.